representing the hometown. Okay, it's time for the last round of draft here at Pro Tour Thunder Junction.
No.
For the pod!
No.
Well, I know, I'm sad. I'm sad too.
I want more.
I know, as do I. It's such a fabulous format. Check it out, these two battling for the top spot in pod number 1, Javier Dominguez versus Kevin Anctil, facing off here in round number 11. Let's get to meet the players. Javier Dominguez, your 2018 world champion, the winner of Mythic Championship 5 in 2019. Coverage, just backstage, everyone was saying about how much they love watching Javier play. He's such an emotional player.
Yeah.
You always know if he's winning or losing, let me tell
Yeah,
you.
absolutely.
Kevin Anctil, on the other side of things, qualified via a Canadian regional championship, has 2 top 8s at some face-to-face championships up there in Canada as well, and is running a sweet Orza Bronco deck in Standard that I hope we get to see
that.
later.
It did really well, too.
It did.
Really well.
Dark Bronc Confidant.
Bron Confidant, I like it.
Okay, all right, well, that's for later. Let's focus on their limited decks now. Let's take a peek at these decks, Corey.
Yeah, let's take a look. So starting with Javier Dominguez here, we've seen this deck list already, and it is incredibly powerful here. I believe day 1 we had a just absolutely busted Rakdos deck as well.
Yeah.
Maybe Rakdos is the new secret instead of green cards. We got Terror of the Peak here. We got great removal. You have Unlicensed Hearse to just create a bunch of crime, and then your X spells, the Crackle with power, as well as the Electro Dominance to really close out these games, as we've been seeing Javier do these first few rounds. Then taking a look at Kevin's deck, this deck is good, it is solid, it is definitely being held up by the best card being Dusk Animus. That card is absolutely unreasonable, so very strong. You even have Path to Exile, not only one of the best removal spells in this format, but one of the best removal spells of all time. Outside of that, just a really solid Boros deck. Nothing too crazy, but we have a couple of your favorite tricks there, Maria. Take up the shield, give them indestructible, make them into a little boggly creatures. Huh?
Absolutely.
Love
Your
it.
removal does nothing.
No, not allowed.
All right, it's time to play for the pod here and the final round of draft at Pro Tour Thunder Junction. Marshall and Monty, take it away.
Yeah, thank you so much, Maria. Welcome back to the booth here. Last round of draft. It's always a little bit bittersweet for us in the booth here, but at the same time, this is where things get solidified out of the limited rounds because, of course, super important to do well in limited, especially on day 2, because by the time you get to the seat that these two gentlemen, for example, are sitting in, you know that your constructed deck has already done well, and perhaps it would even continue to do so if you could just pick up this one last round. Let's see Javier Dominguez versus Kevin Anctil, and we have, well, as you can see, 2 different builds coming at you. There is a Naya deck in the hands of Kevin. As for Javier, well, we've seen this deck multiple times today already, and it is a sight to behold. This is a very powerful Rakdos deck in the hands of Dominguez.
Yeah, just an absolute bucket of removal from Javier alongside some of the most powerful bombs in the format that aren't in the color green. Terror of the Peaks really leading the pack there. For Kevin, the deck definitely has some very powerful cards. Dust Animus in and of itself, one of the best cards in the format, as we do see it getting plotted there immediately. That'll be coming down in a few turns. And you do also see that Kevin did end up with a second copy of Jolene, well, the first one that Ikawa chose to pass up for a Tarantula before swapping into red-green. So one of the cards that is being splashed in what looks to be a mostly Boros deck with a small splash for green for Kevin.
Dust Animus, as you mentioned, Monty, one of the best cards in the format, full stop. It is very, very powerful, especially for just 2 mana on the plot, which is what you see here. A few turns later, that thing can come down, and all of a sudden, it's a 4/5 flying lifelink. Very difficult to deal with, and very difficult to race as well. On top of that, Kevin had a nice 2-drop with the Omenport Vigilante. It did get met with a Thunder Salvo, but that card can do a lot of work too.
It definitely can, especially with that Thunder Lasso curve. That is one of the most powerful curves in the format, having a 3/3 double striker because you are committing a crime on attack and tapping a blocker. Unfortunately, of course, the Vigilante was not long for this world. And one of the issues for Kevin
Same
is...
thing with Dust Animals.
Yeah, you're playing against a removal-heavy deck. You are a creature-based deck, and look at this hand. It's so expensive. Kevin has 2 Eartha Joes. Turn 4 was spent passing the turn back without a play. So this is not the type of game plan you want to be playing against this mid-range removal-heavy deck that Javier has access to, because now that you're deploying your threats, you're being met by Terror and Murder, and there's 3 copies of the Agony in Javier's deck, and I believe one of them in hand alongside Crackle with Power. So just so much removal waiting for Kevin when he finally does start deploying what should be these haymakers.
Speaking of haymakers, it feels like every time we look at the battlefield, Javier Dominguez has his good friend, the Terror of the Peaks, on there, and nobody seems to be able to get rid of the thing. Is that the case here as well?
Yeah, there is a copy of Take Up the Shield. Kevin does have 2 of these. We've been talking about the power of these protection spells all weekend. Haven't really seen them as much as we would have expected in the limited format. But Kevin does have 2 in his deck. This is the way these white decks are supposed to combat these black-red mid-range decks that are bringing these piles of removal. And Kevin has 1 in hand, but has to tap out for these expensive creatures, which means now the way is clear for Javier if he has some removal spells.
You see the Sterling Supplier met with another copy of Sterling Supplier. That's going to put the counter on the OG, and that is going to get it through. It's a 4-5. And Javier now making his plans. That's a lot of toughness over there for Kevin. I mean, he's got 3-4 and a 4-5.
It's a lot of toughness. You can just go for the Wolverine here and send it face if you would like. You could Terminal Agony one of them. I think Wolverine sent 3 damage to face, exile a card, and being able to crew the hearse here is a lot of pressure being put.
And there was land as well. As you mentioned, one of the copies of Terminal Agony in hand here for Dominguez, but for now, it's time to turn some creatures sideways, and that is a huge hit. And as we also know, when you've got the Terror of the Peaks, there you can even win without attacking at some point, and that point comes up usually pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think there is a very realistic possibility here that Kevin will feel forced to use this Take Up the Shield to gain some life, because you are getting to a point where this Terror of the Peaks is a problem. Kevin probably has to play defensively. If your opponent's a 16 and you're at 8, you can't really just turn them sideways again unless you're planning on aggressively using this Take Up the Shield.
Yeah, there's also Crackle with Power in hand here for Dominguez, which can go anywhere. The inflection points for Crackle are 5, 8, 11, mana.
Yeah,
maybe if you're Monty, get up to the, post 11. But
I've done it for the full 20. Not in this format, but in its original format, the full 20 was sent.
And it's interesting because looking at Javier, he's got 6 lands right now plus a mountain in hand, so he would have to wait 2 more turns if he wants to go to 8, but he could just go for 5 to the head too.
Yeah, he has one of the lands in hand, not the second, but I think that is what he's going to be eyeing here, is the ability to finish the game.
This is Thunder Lasso. Wow, Kevin continuing to try to beat down.
Yeah, says send 4, leave up a Take Up the Shield, which Javier has to be aware of here. And this Take Up the Shield is trying to gain you enough life and keep you alive through this attack, where you are able to just win the game on the next turn by attacking, tapping down this Terror of the Peaks, and hopefully adding some damage to the board. Not enough currently. 12 is not the magic number for killing Javier.
Javier stepping aside to ask the judge a question. Questions he could be thinking about. How many targets for Crackle with Power? Maybe something with Rooftop Assassin.
Yeah, if I had to guess, Javier is asking, can I target a creature with this Assassin's ability that hasn't taken damage yet? Because Javier is probably looking to play the Assassin, stack the trigger so he's targeting something and dealing damage to it with the Terror of the Peaks, and hoping that's the sequence. Is that allowed?
Gosh, that'd be a really nice way to figure out if there's a Take Up the Shield sitting over there. The mana for Kevin is just looming. You see that plains and that mountain, and the first thing you think in this format is exactly take up the shield, and that's what he's got in hand.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't believe that works. It isn't an intervening if clause, so in order to target the creature, it would have already needed to take the damage. So Javier's hand might be a little forced in this situation.
He also has the game plan, as awkward as it is, of just waiting another turn and seeing if he hits a land drop. And if Kevin wants to try to survive off of take up the shield, he's going to have to do it proactively, which really just, well, it leaves the shields down, as it were. And that is not, against a player of Javier's caliber, you do not want to let him know exactly what's going on. Really interesting spot here.
Yeah, you have to have take up the shield on your radar in this spot.
Right, everybody at this table, including Javier, is thinking about take up the shield and how does it affect things. If there is no take up the shield, none of this matters anyway.
Right. If there's no take up the shield, then he wins this game. The question is, can you play around take up the shield in a meaningful way?
And that's what he's doing.
Comment?
It looks like he's just going to attack with the Irascible Wolverine. He can then finish it off post-combat or whenever he wants with the Rooftop Assassin, and that will actually get it out without gaining any life unless Kevin gets crazy and fires it off proactively for the life gain.
Oh, Kevin just took it.
Oh, he just took it there. This is 3 levels above.
Wait. He hasn't taken it yet. He's thinking about it. He was looking. Sorry. He lifted the pen as if he was taking it, but I think he was just looking at the life totals.
He got me, you, and Javier with that pen left there, but he did not write anything down nor verbalize what he was going to do, so he still gets to decide. But if he does take it, he just loses to Crackle on the spot.
Now, it has to be said that even though we know about the Rooftop Assassin, Kevin has to be looking at this Terror of the Peaks as well. So he is aware that if he just blocks and Javier plays any creature post-combat to kill this, he would lose out on that life gain. So it isn't like there isn't an incentive for Kevin to proactively use the take up the shield.
He is going to block. Yeah, I think what happened is he did level 3 thinking, and now he's up to level 4.
I think he needs to use this take up the shield.
As awkward as it is.
All right, Kevin's turn.
Really funny. Both players are. This is an extremely intricate spot, right? The timing on all these things really matters. The windows will close very quickly for Kevin, and he's in a terrible position here.
It would be very amusing to me, and there's no way for us to get confirmation of this, if both players ask the judge the exact same question.
Yeah, and he shrugs and has to fire it off because Kevin knows what's up.
Full understanding of the situation at hand. If you go to post-combat, this terror can finish off the supplier with anything. So you have to be proactive if you want this life gain, and you protect your creature against many of the cards that Javier can have in this spot. Kevin playing fantastically throughout this game.
That's a really, really heads-up play from Kevin here. It is unlikely to earn him a victory in this game,
but it gives him a chance.
Absolutely kept him in it.
Yep.
And he's going to get a little bit of time here. Maybe he can find an answer for the Terror of the Peaks.
Yeah, the Agony has to take out the other supplier. So 1 down, but there is still 1 on the board.
Javier still at a relatively comfortable 12 life, though Kevin just jumped up to 13 life.
Yeah, that life gain is no joke.
Javier with no way to discard his Terminal Agony, otherwise he could have turned the tables once again on Kevin, but that heads-up play, wow, I'm impressed.
Notably, Terror of the Peaks is only spells that target it, so trying to tap it with the Lasso trigger, that won't trigger the 3 life loss. So Kevin does have the option of remaining aggressive here. Theoretically, the question is, do you have the luxury?
7.
Well, it looks like Kevin's decided that if a win is going to come his way, it is because he's going to be able to thread the needle of keeping up pressure and just not quite dying to Terror of the Peaks.
Yeah,
There's an Eartha Joe finally. He really wanted that earlier. This game would be over, but didn't have it just at the time.
I think... Okay, Javier did find another creature, so now he is able to use the Vault Plunderer plus the Rooftop Assassin and the Terror to kill the to kill the supplier if he has no other way of finding lethal. I believe terror going to face is 5. The plunderer can deal up to 4 total, plus the assassin, that's 2 more. So Kevin would go down to 2, which is not quite lethal there. So I think what Javier could do
13, huh?
is
13,
start with
7.
the plunderer and see what he draws. But realistically, I think Javier's best out to be safe here is using the plunderer plus the assassin to take down the supplier in the spot.
It's gonna be this.
Thinking through his options.
I mean, this game got super interesting now.
Yeah. Kevin has really maximized his aggression and is presenting lethal through a blocker here with the help of the lasso and the mercenary. So Javier does need to clear off this flyer. It is a problem. And I think the Vault Plunderer, deal 3 damage to it, then use the Rooftop Assassin's ability to finish it off is his best bet.
So triggers and triggers.
This is the gamble, because if Javier sends 3 to the face, draws a card for himself, hits a land, he's able to attack for 5, crackle for 5, that's GG. But if he doesn't hit the land, then he doesn't have a way to get the supplier off the board, and the math on the table says that it's lethal. He has a way of getting rid of the vampire, and the Rooftop Assassin is a flash blocker, so that could do the job.
Oh, he hit the land
though.
off the top, though, from Javier.
The gamble play, and it's going to be lethal.
He's just making sure, wow, that swamp was exactly what he wanted to see.
I haven't played a land, right? Because if I have it, you're dead. I have it.
And he hasn't.
Thinking through the options, thinking about what he saw on Kevin's deck list.
Javier
Checking.
just double checking. Crackle
5
with
mana,
power.
5 damage, right?
You've only got 1 mana up.
The flashiest lava axe you've ever seen. 5 you.
5.
That's the number. 5.
How about 5
That's
more?
not the one. 5 you.
Well, he took his time.
5 damage.
You had 10, Javier.
Yeah.
Go ahead and cast it. I
bit
think he
tense.
got confused there.
It's one of those situations where, like,
He actually just apologized. He said, I wasn't trying to slow roll you there. I mean, to be fair, Crackle with Power is one of the, like, mind-bender cards. Like, just yesterday, I was playing on Arena, and I said, Monty, how much do I need to do what I want to do? And you're like, either
5,
8
8,
or 11.
yeah, it's one of
It
those
was 11,
things.
by the way.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Wow, sick breaks. Javier would have liked 11 there, I think.
Yeah.
It's definitely one of those situations where no matter how much of a professional you are, no matter how seasoned you are, when you're in this position, you're 2-0 in your draft, you're 9-1 at the Pro Tour, there's a bit of anxiety. There's a bit of nerves. This matters. You want that next top 8. You want to go for another title. You want to compete. And it starts with this win. So when you're that close, you don't want a mechanical error or a mathematical error being the thing that costs you. That's the difference between a win and a loss.
That's right, and that is why you see Javier, and he explained that too. He told Kevin, he said, look, I wasn't trying to be rude. I just got to take my time to make sure that I don't make some easy misstep. It's one thing if you make a mistake strategically. It's a totally different thing if you just, overlook something. Those are the ones that are really difficult to recover from.
Okay.
You see the peddler here. Oh, it's actually going to get picked up from Kevin, and he took a chance here to get rid of Gured there, as well as he would prefer to, have castable spells in his hand, as it turns out. He's got Taiwakin as well.
All right, Marshall, quick question.
How well supported is it? What's that?
What's the most you've dealt with a Taiwakin in this format?
0.
0?
Oh, I mean, I guess I attacked with it once or something. But
Oh,
I have never popped off with Taiwakin.
I've used it to deal 11 with a desert. It feels real good.
That's a good game plan near the end of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have not lived that particular dream.
No deserts that deal damage, at least, for Kevin. So not the best Tywooking deck, but there are certainly still some ways to use it. But oof, with the desert, that is a fun combo.
It is a nice place to put mana. There's Vial Smasher and Vault Plunder on the battlefield here for Javier. And he says, I'm fine trading with either of these.
5.
Go ahead. Kevin declined.
This game looks very nice for Kevin. That hand, double take up the shield, plus Steer Clear, plus the Peddler, means that you can very safely just be the aggressor. He can attack every turn. His life total will stay up. He isn't worried about racing from Javier, and he has protection. This is a really strong board state plus hand combo for Kevin. I think one thing he's considering right now before committing to the attack is, if Javier blocks, what am I using? Am I going for take up the shield? Am I protecting the Tywooking? Am I saving both take up the shields for protection spells and just playing a Peddler post-combat? What is happening if and or when you make the block?
Ooh,
13.
that was nice.
Love to see it.
Down to 13 falls Javier, and Kevin's got to be happy with the way that this has gone. He's got Discerning Peddler, the one he picked up off the Nurturing Pixie last turn.
Okay.
And he's going to discard a land to it this time.
No mounts for Kevin, so
Okay.
Steer Clear only dealing 2 damage.
He's going to play a Mesa naming red here. Or perhaps green, although I think I heard him say red.
I will say 2 damage
No, it is green.
is what Kevin wants here, because if he deals exact damage to
Yes.
that Vial Smasher, for example, that's a card.
It's true.
I will say I've never drawn a card off Tyler.
Yeah,
Cade.
I view that as impossible.
I've dealt a ton of damage. I've never drawn a card. Deadeye Duelist, very fun combo.
Oh, nice.
4 blocks. Okay.
And we're going to see a Steer Clear here now from Kevin. It's going to target the Vial Smasher.
Draw a card. Yep. That is Value Town.
He's somehow lucky he didn't have a mount this time. Whatever. This is a weird. Steer Clear is a cool one.
Yeah.
13. Yep.
Man, he gets a 2-for-1 off of Steer Clear Tywooking?
Yeah.
If he loses this game,
I mean,
we're just not doing it.
this Rictus Robber is a nice addition to the board.
Definitely.
But
And it is online thanks to that Steer Clear.
I think that was the last turn of the game that Kevin was going to have the shields quite literally down.
Uh-huh.
And he got away out of it without losing a creature. So from here on out,
Wow.
I think things get very scary.
Yeah, when you put it that way, it really shows how good it is here, you know, from a position where he has all the choices.
Yeah.
He's going to be able to choose how and when he wants to deploy these take up the shields to protect his board or use them as removal spells against the opponent. He's also got Eartha Joe in his hand.
Yeah, I think this turn I would like to send everything in. And if Javier blocks both creatures, I would save Tywooking, but not the Robber.
I see.
Okay.
But instead, it's more action as Eartha Joe Frontier Mentor and a friend.
Yeah, Kevin just saying that, hey,
3 cards.
I put the shields down last turn. You didn't punish me. You didn't use a removal spell. So I'll put him down again. Now there's a new threat for you to answer in Eartha Joe. And I still have these take up the shields next turn.
Right. Oh, but there's that Terror of the Peaks just every single time for Javier.
Yeah, this is what I was a little worried about in Kevin's seat, is by taking the line that you have, now you're in a position where Javier had more time than you would otherwise like to give him, and he can comfortably deploy this terror and not feel forced to block with it, for example. Even if Kevin goes, all right, I'll double pump this Pixie now, attack you for 4, Javier's not blocking with the terror, and then suddenly you're in a position where you have to defensively use these take up the shields while you're not attacking, and that's
Right.
what I'm worried about in Kevin's position.
Yeah, if you want to, we love the idea of take up the shield against a removal spell or as a pseudo removal spell of your own during combat. A lot less exciting if it's just to neutralize a Terror of the Peaks trigger.
Yeah.
And if you look at Javier's hand, there are triggers coming.
I could see Kevin going after the Peddler and the Pixie with the 2 pumps, but ultimately I think this is the I'm going to attack with 1 creature bet. Thinking. I don't really think you can afford to attack with a 2-power creature, because if the Terror blocks it, are you using double take up the shield?
Double
No.
troubling?
Are you using 1 to just keep it alive?
So you're not going to use both? I guess basically what you're saying is I am willing to do so, right? If I make this deck. This works out really nicely.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you would have to use both to get rid of the Terror. It just feels like a bad position.
It does.
Yeah, so you go 16 and I go to 7.
Javier Dominguez was already writing down
Yeah.
life totals as if a take up the shield had resolved. It wasn't even tapped for mana yet, but these players certainly know what's up in this format.
Javier was, of course, trying to force out the take up the shield, so he would be able to go ahead and remove multiple things here. The worst case scenario for Javier is exactly what happens here, which is the 2nd copy of take up the shield in hand from Kevin.
There are only 2, so Javier will be aware of the fact that he could have the other, but might also be thinking, well, I've got rid of one of them.
It's really hard to play around 2, right?
Right.
It's one of those positions where at some point you just have to say, okay, well, if you have it, you have it. I'm going to try my best to make you have it. And he can still do quite a lot of damage here. He can start with something like the Coyote, try to take out one of the 2 toughness creatures like the Pixie or the Mercenary token, get some of the trouble off the board, and then go for the Terminal Agony, for example. But you really want to see what Kevin is working with here and try to force the hand.
Oh, he's got to ask yet another question. This is the right thing to do, by the way, especially if you're playing in a tournament that has a judge on hand. You can always ask for what they call oracle text. That's just the current legal text on any card. You know, if somebody's playing a card in a language that you don't know, you know, you can say, hey, I'd like to get the oracle text. And then it's also so much better to clear something with a judge ahead of time rather than do it and then try to figure it out after, because you know what? It may not work the way you wanted it to.
Yeah, I think it is. You know, I don't love judge calls, but I think it is a great showing of the game that even a player of Javier's caliber and pedigree and resume is still willing to call a judge rather than assume, I'm Javier Dominguez, I know how this works. It's about playing the game right and making sure that you aren't costing yourself in the process.
Curious what he was asking.
I am too. It may have been the stacking on the Coyote, but Coyote says another creature, so it couldn't buff itself for the Terror anyways. So I am a little curious.
It's going to be Quill Charger ultimately that's going to hit the battlefield here. And it looks like Tai Joaquin is lined up to take 4 damage, and Kevin has to decide, do I want to use my other take up the shield, or is there is it earmarked for something else?
And if Javier plays the Coyote here and there's no take up the shield to clear off this Peddler, he has lethal. He has a 16-point swing here, but we know that take up the shield is here, so I think that is why he's being so cautious, is he's thinking, if I play this Coyote, I deal 2 to your Peddler, I give haste to the Charger and crew it, I think I count 16. We just know it's not going to work.
Wow.
I to that card, into the other card.
Interesting there, too. So he targets Tai Joaquin first.
Yep.
And now forces Kevin to potentially use, if there is, and we know there is, but from Javier's perspective, if there even is a take up the shield, now it's going to be used on a
16-7.
random Peddler.
Yeah. The good news for Javier is Kevin, because the Peddler is his only blocker, he has to use the take up the shield in response to the Terror trigger, which means Javier gets that information before attacking for what he thinks is lethal, and that means that he can completely reevaluate based on the second take up the shield.
And he needs to, because he's at 7 life.
The haste will go on the Charger. The 2 damage will go on the peddler.
2 triggers. When you're the active player, you can stack them
Here in this case,
as you
yes.
wish.
And now it's Kevin's turn to count the damage and say, yeah,
Say,
pick up
wait,
the shield.
that's lethal?
Yeah, don't love that.
For 3.
D5. It would be lethal. Yeah.
It would be lethal, yeah.
Kevin says, okay, well, if that's the case, I better not die here.
I was like, let me save you some time. So now Javier has up to an attack for 11, I believe, between the Terror and
16, 7.
saddling the Charger to give it Menace. And that's 11 that Kevin can't block. But if he was to attack with everything, Kevin could block the Vault Peddler, for example, gaining 3 while taking 4. So only taking 12 damage total. So I wouldn't be surprised to see just the Terror come in here. You really, at 7, are in a precarious position, so you don't want to use a second creature to saddle the Charger and then attack with it, essentially leaving yourself on only 2 blockers.
Right, and anything that attacks on the ground that doesn't have Menace is just giving Kevin life. So
Exactly.
okay. Can Javier Dominguez ride this Terror of the Peaks to a 3-0 so far? That thing's on the table turn 5 like every single time, and he has been, and it's stuck too, by the way. It's, you know, sometimes when you play that card, they untap, they kill it, you go, okay, well, I got 3 life, and I use up their good removal spell, and life goes on. That has not been the case. Javier's got to untap with it every single time.
Kevin has 4 with the Mercenary activation, 5 with the Supplier that he just found a land for. Homestead not really providing any support here. The question is, if he sends 5 damage by the cost of 2 creatures being tapped and passes with 3 blockers, 1 in the air, can he survive Javier's turn? That's what he has to be figuring out here.
Yeah, and it's interesting because he can do the math on the actual onboard combat, but then the Terror of the Peaks just screws up everything because it's any creature basically can take out at least a blocker, if not just do a bunch of damage to Kevin. And it just, at some point you just have to say, well, I hope you A, don't have one in your hand and don't draw one. Then can I survive? Then do things look good?
Yeah, and that's the problem with being in Kevin's position and passing without an attack, is life doesn't get better for you with a Terror of the Peaks in play. Each turn it gets most likely worse.
Yeah, he's going to have to take on risk, but we saw that he's very willing to do that. He did that in the last game and really put himself in a very close position to winning it. He ultimately was not able to do so, but it was close.
Yeah, so
And
he's
now
saying,
he's doing math.
take these 2 back, I have 3 blockers.
And he has to keep the pressure up.
Okay.
So that's 3 damage in the air. Yeah, he did not use the Mercenary there. Down to 4 goes Javier. And he found your favorite? No, that was
No.
a Black Snake Buzzard.
Yeah.
Not a Raven.
It baits me sometimes in Limited. I see it, I see the Blackbird, I'm like, yes, no.
No,
Well, not quite.
Other one.
Yeah, not quite. But don't worry, it happens to me too.
Still a good one.
It's still not bad.
I mean, any creature here, especially a flyer, is enough to take out at least one blocker and or prevent or, you know, become a blocker itself for one of these 2 flyers that Kevin has.
Yeah, if you could get it to 3 power, have it enter with that extra counter by making Kevin lose a creature in this combat step, that would be ideal to take out that Pixie. But Javier has to be aware of the fact that this Mercenary token plus either of those flying creatures right now is lethal. So Javier has to be taking that into consideration when the turn is going back to
Unfortunately, not the
Kevin.
creature.
I'm fine with that.
A little bit of a non-bow here for Javier.
Javier says, unfortunately. Kevin says, whew,
Thank goodness you decided to put that one in your list.
as he's holding his own. It really,
Exactly.
mobile homestead parity between the 2 players.
True.
11, huh?
11, huh?
Yeah, Javier. He's a really, really nice guy.
Yeah.
But when he says 11, huh? It's like, oh, no. Like, I don't like the sound of that one little bit if I'm sitting across from him.
Yeah.
5.
3-5. 3-5, 3-3.
Saddle.
Okay, so the Quill Charger's going to get saddled up.
That's a 5 power menace.
Come up.
So he's going to attack with both of these, and one must get blocked. And there's no great blocks here.
One must get blocked from what we know.
And I'm
Kevin
assuming
likely knows
Kevin
the
is like, I
same.
just can't go to 1.
I think if Kevin wants to give himself the best chance of winning this game, the play is double block the Charger using Joe plus the Peddler.
Yes.
Say take 5. Leave back 2 flyers and a mercenary that can buff them.
That's where I'd be too.
And then
Because the fact that Javier is attacking and also his demeanor, you know, says, I'm not that worried. Like,
if Javier doesn't have a flying blocker, then the flyers can get the job done.
very good hand here for Dominguez. He's got Terminal Agni and Blacksnake Buzzard. The Buzzard particularly important here.
Yeah, Kevin's like, okay. I can do this. I have 2 flyers. I can represent both of them with up to 4 power. Joe is 5 toughness, so it will die in this block. Right now, Kevin finds himself in the exact same position, well, similar position that Javier found the previous turn. You don't want to miscount something. You don't want to lose this game that you feel like you can win here to a mechanical or mathematical error. Now the Buzzard comes down with a counter. That can kill off the Pixie. This keeps Javier alive on board. He has a flying blocker, but if Kevin finds any removal spell or a lasso, which we know is in his deck, that wins the game.
Oh, can he find it?
Flip it.
That's 4.
At
You're at
4. Mercenary, what was the card? Attack and ride down.
Oh, he's got right down, which will
That was the
actually get it
draw.
out of the way, give it trample, and earn
Wow.
Kevin the victory. What a top deck for him.
Wow. Huge ride down off the top, pushing us to a game 3.
Kevin just beat a Terror of the Peaks that was in play for like 4 turns.
Kevin played that game to perfection, maximizing every single marginal point of damage available to him to win the game with exactly enough. That was
He played
fantastic.
really well in game 1 as well. He just couldn't quite get over the finish line against Terror of the Peaks, but still.
Oh, Canada, making us proud here in the feature match area.
No kidding. You should be proud. That
Yeah,
was
I am.
incredible play from Kevin.
Really great
This is
stuff.
also a high pressure situation as well. You can't forget about that part. There's a mobile homestead. Javier's got to shake that off. He's got to feel like there was a way for him to win it. He played well too.
Look, this homestead didn't look great last game. This game, this is where you want a homestead. This, if you hit a land with it, can snowball out of control. I think that was a Terminal Agony, so no such luck, but still pressure starting. Dust Animus a few turns away. Javier has removal. Rictus Robber plus a salvo in hand. I think Terminal Agony on top. So
it's Terminal Agony and then the Terror of the Peak so that he can have it on turn 5 like always?
yeah. Like
Okay.
it's definitely there.
Yeah.
It's just going to be one further card down.
Right.
Actually, 2 cards down because he's going to hit the land from the mobile.
Oh, right. I
Homestead
forgot about
first,
that. The
and
homestead
then
land.
and then it's
Yeah.
the Terror.
You see Dust Animus hanging out for Kevin. That will be here in just a little while. That was Terminal Agni, by the way. Monty, you were
Come on,
correct.
come on. What are we doing here?
So
Come
14,
on. Of course it was.
19,
It has to
19,
be, right?
Yeah, come on. Like I would see a breaking news card wrong off a brief glimpse of the top of the deck. Come on, Marshall.
You're right, Lonnie. I apologize for even following up. Okay, Rictus Robber is going to get plotted here, leaving just the 1 mountain.
Green. Yeah. Yeah.
It was not a land on top of the library. Okay, there's Geared. It does have haste as well, so slams for 3.
A little bit of a tax having
card, so it's-
that extra filter land in the conduit just to make the green, but it does get in.
Okay, it looks like it was not Terror of the Peaks that was actually on top of the library, so I don't know. Javier's really lost the script here, but it
A
was
second Terminal Agony.
second Terminal Agony.
So this.
And he's not going to mess around here. He's just going to take out Geared here, and that's important. You don't want that card to get out of hand, and Kevin does have a few ways to make token creatures as well. In the meantime, look at this.
Yeah.
Javier Dominguez way out ahead. This Dust Animus, it's going to die.
Yeah. Well, it's going to try to die. There's a take up
Is
the
there
shield.
a take up the
in
shield?
Kevin's
Okay,
hand.
now we have a real game.
Yeah, yeah. Now we have a game. What I will say is that Terminal Agony pre-combat almost felt forced with that Rictus Robber. You really want to make the token. You really want to use it to crew the homestead so you can attack for 6. But this is the test turn. If this Dust Animus enters and Kevin leaves up to take up the shield, things become much, much slower now.
And I assume that he will. Dust Animus is the type of card that you can protect and actually have it win you the game, or in this case, stabilize the board, which is
Yeah.
critical. Javier goes, pass?
Kevin goes pass. Javier goes pass. Eyes wide. Little nod.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is also a little bit of a mana situation for Kevin, as you mentioned before. He only has the one true
Ooh.
white source.
Ooh.
But what do you
He
see?
drew Shoot the Sheriff.
Oh,
He has
really?
2 removal spells, 6 mana.
Did he really?
He sure did. You
And Dust
betcha.
Animus is a spirit.
Oh, it's not a mercenary.
It's not a spirit
It's not,
warlock.
It's not an outlaw
It's not
of
a
any kind.
Jeez, Javier Dominguez finds double removal, both of which are capable of killing a 4/5.
Is Dust Animus the ultimate sheriff?
No.
No, okay.
in this
All right.
case.
No, all right, my bad. I apologize. I'll shut up. Okay, so
Wow.
Kevin has an explosive derailment and a steer clear. Can only cast one of them. Oh, never mind. Both
Oh,
modes.
he's going to get both modes, isn't he? The homestead,
Yep.
but that is going to open up
Yeah.
the opportunity for Shoot the Sheriff to take down the Dust Animus. Wow, but like a legit 2-for-1 there from Kevin, and he also took no damage that turn.
Interesting.
I know he's got a Sterling supplier, but take up the shield is still there.
Javier passed the turn there. He
He
didn't
did.
go to combat.
He did.
He passed the turn, and when Kevin did the derailment, he was able to just get the turn back without taking any damage. That is really big.
Seriously. Okay, well, Deputy's going to come down. And this
Ooh.
is actually quite annoying for Kevin, to have to dig up a Plains like
No, no, no. He has a Wolverine in hand. He's putting that Plains into play for a
Oh,
steer clear.
very
This
nice.
is value down for Kevin.
Kevin is playing this thing like a fiddle.
Kevin is in the zone right
I
now.
like it. There's Thunder Salvo to take the irascible Wolverine down, but it did its job.
Yeah, and that 1/2 is still blocking this Vault Plunderer.
Man,
Does Javier really want to trade with it?
Javier had a full board against only one creature that Javier had the tools to deal with. And ever since that turn, it really felt like it fell apart for Javier here. He got 2-for-1. Yes, his Dust Animus died, but it was just a 1-for-1.
Yeah, this is really good for Kevin right now.
My mind is kind of blown right now. Like, Kevin is playing this so well.
And if he draws a land here and is able to go Sterling Supplier, leave up, take up the shield, Javier's life is really tough. Okay, that's good. Urta Joe, leave up, take up the shield.
Boom.
You know what's a mercenary? You know what has that ability?
What's that?
Deputy.
Oh,
Silver
it
Deputy.
is a just
both.
mercenary as well.
It is
Yeah.
a mercenary. Just activate it. Pump for 2. 1, yeah.
It's kind of an interesting one. He tapped the 4 mana first, and it's like, because, now all of a sudden the Vault Plunderer doesn't look
right.
so super hot, but
Vial Smasher for Javier. This is not when you want to draw Vial Smasher.
So what?
Yeah.
Right?
You want to draw Vial Smasher 5-ish turns ago.
Exactly.
Wow.
Totally decent card, but not good here.
Kevin took full control of this game with that derailment turn.
The 2-for-1 at derailment was brutal.
Here we go.
That's a land drop as well,
Yep.
so that the Sterling Supplier can hit the battlefield with Take the Shield still available. Kevin Anctil just putting on a show. The reason I'm so impressed is just because of the stakes and also because of how difficult of a situation this is. These have been really tight spots, no room for error.
5 damage coming on across.
The deputy deciding not to help out this time.
Looks like Crackle was drawn. Javier is 1 short of sending it to the face for 10 and just ending the game.
He needs to get to 8 mana,
Needs to get to 8 mana.
and he's got a land in hand.
No, he has a Terminal Agony in hand.
Oh, he's got 7 lands already? Oh.
I think he has to force the Agony on the supplier, hope that Kevin's last card is Take Up the Shield that he uses defensively to not gain any life here. And then he passes the turn,
Hits a land drop.
makes some blocks, hits a land drop, and wins the game.
And that's exactly what's happening. Kevin does use it,
All right.
and he doesn't have lethal here.
Supplier is 4. The 2 mercenaries, that makes 8 in the air. Kevin needs 2 damage.
To finish the game right now.
Forest won't do it. Javier gets a draw. Any untapped land wins the game and the match for Javier Dominguez.
Oh, this is incredible. You can see Javier is really feeling it. And look at this. Kevin's going to have a little
Yep.
browse through the graveyard.
And Kevin, if Kevin goes 2 all in here, if Kevin only leaves up 1 blocker, Crackle is lethal because both of these creatures on the battlefield have 3 power. So you can't go in with everything. You have to just use 1 mercenary on the supplier.
Oh, Crackle's lethal without the land, you mean?
Yes.
Oh.
3-5.
3-5. Javier,
8.
is he playing around Ride Down? If he doesn't play around exactly Ride Down off the top and blocks with just 1 creature, if that's a land in Kevin's hand, Javier wins. He
What
has
a
to make a
terrible
choice.
judgment call. And remember, that was a top deck from Kevin last game.
No, I think Javier realizes Ride Down is lethal regardless. If you double block, Kevin
Oh,
just
'cause you're
rides
taking
down,
8 anyway.
Just rides down the Vial Smasher
Yeah.
and tramples over for 2 over the Vault Plunderer anyway. So you single block.
Oh,
And
so
if Javier smells it out, if he's can I get the text
can
of
I
Ride
get the
Down?
text on Ride Down?
If he does the
Destroy
math,
target blocking creature, your creature gets trample.
yeah, just Vault Plunder, and he has lethal. Kevin has just a land in hand. I think once Javier realizes that a double block doesn't save him from Ride Down, there's no reason to make it. I die anyways.
I die
He figures
anyways,
it
he
out.
said it. So he's just
Javier's
going to
going to
single
win the
block,
match.
and he is going to attack regardless
Oh
of what
my
is on top of
goodness.
the library. Now, there is 1 card in hand for Kevin that Javier
can't
doesn't
play
know,
around
but
it.
it doesn't matter anyway.
Get in there. 3
Attack for 3, and Kevin, probably his heart
just like
sank.
game 1. 5U.
And there it is, Crackle
Wow.
with power, and all Kevin Anctil can do is shake his head and then shake his
Wow.
opponent's hand. Javier Dominguez somehow pulls the 3-0 out of that. What an incredible match. That was really one for the ages, Monty.
That was awesome. You saw Kevin at the end of that game just a little rub of the Silver Deputy, just saying, if I hadn't used that one, went a little too aggressive, hoping to force Javier into a bad position. Javier sniffs it out, makes desperation plays, and wins the match, moving up to 10-1.
Awesome. That's the kind of match that we love as limited fans, right? That's the thing that lets you show off some of the things that you don't necessarily get out of Constructed, where a lot of the cards are one-ofs. A lot of the stuff is, I know this one card exists, but can I afford to play around it? And we got to see that all on display here.
Yeah, a recognition of combat tricks, a respect for untapped mana, an understanding of when you have to go for it and when you can't. Both players really taking every margin available to them, and I really think both of them should be very proud of how they played that match.
They should. That was an awesome match and a pleasure to watch. That's going to do it for us in the booth for this round. We are going to take a short break. When we get back, though, we'll be back at the news desk to set up our return to Standard. We'll see you there.
What's up, friends?